Welcome to Money, Manifestation, and Business, the podcast that shows you how to use your energy, intention, and consciousness to reprogram your money mindset, unleash a new level of possibility, and create a life and business that lights you up. I'm your host, Jamie Berman, and I invite you to join me each week for a dose of inspiration, coaching, and teachings to help you rewrite your money story, create abundance on your terms, and grow your business in a way that's fully aligned for you. This is going to be so much fun. Let's dive in. Hi, love. I am all cozied up. Got my cup of tea, got my big sweater on. It's raining here in LA, and it just seems like the perfect time to record this episode for the end of the year. The best time of year. I just love it. It is the time to celebrate. All right. I mean, come on. I just celebrated Hanukkah, then Christmas, then my birthday. I'm a Christmas baby, day after Christmas baby. So it's such a fun time to celebrate. And then we got the New Year's coming, and I've got my manifestation retreat around the corner. And so I want to talk about a powerful ritual you can practice this time of year that will ensure that next year is even better, that you manifest even more magic in the new year if you go through this process. And the energy of this year is what I consider to be an energy of celebration. It is a fantastic time to celebrate. And you might be saying, Jamie, I can't celebrate. I didn't reach my goal. I'm so far from it. Or maybe you did reach it, and maybe you're just like trying to move on to the new year and what's next. And you haven't taken time to look back and reflect on how far you've come. And what I want to encourage, no matter who you are or where you're at, to slow down during this time of year and really look back and celebrate how far you've come. No matter what this year has been for you, if it's been challenging, if it's been amazing, it doesn't matter. You really want to take the time to reflect and celebrate. All right? Now, I talk about celebration a lot when it comes to manifestation. And in fact, in both of my coaching containers, it's really a big part. It's one of our core values is learning how to celebrate our lives, ourselves, our businesses, our clients, right? And I want to unpack this. I want to unpack why it actually matters and why it's actually super effective in your manifestation process, and why it will ensure that you have even more success if you actually learn to celebrate yourself. All right. So I'm going to break it down for you. So I'm sure so many of you have heard the saying, what you focus on grows. And that saying is 100,000% true. What you focus on grows. What you focus on is what you see more of in your life. You see more of it. You see more evidence of it, right? And so many of us, especially us manifestors, we tend to be high achievers or overachievers. We shoot for the stars, right? And that's amazing. It's so awesome. But one of the obstacles that many of us can face is that we don't actually slow down and acknowledge how far we've come. We don't take a moment to experience pride and celebration, right? And the reason that's a problem is, number one, well, first of all, we never actually experience the amazingness of what we've achieved, right? If we're not allowing ourselves to celebrate and experiencing pride, we aren't even really experiencing all that we've created, right? And also, the reason that I say that high achievers tend to miss this step is because high achievers have this amazing brain that is really good at problem solving. I know that's a part of my skill set, problem solving, right? Every entrepreneur really is an amazing problem solver. All right. But here's where it can kind of cause, let's say, a little bit of an issue is that when we're great problem solvers, what we can end up doing is focusing on the problem, right? We see the problem, we see what's missing, we see what's not right, we see how far we didn't come, we see how far we are from our goal, right? And then when we focus on that, again, what you focus on grows. So when you're consistently focused on the problem or a problem, we really just see more problems. We don't ever really experience the growth. So that's why it's really helpful to start kind of deconditioning your brain a little bit of course, you want to be a problem solver, but what's going to actually make you grow so much faster and become so much more successful and even more high achieving is actually focusing on what's going well, what's going right, what you have overcome, how far you've come, what's working, right? And being willing to celebrate that. When we look at that, that is going to allow our growth to skyrocket. And so many of us don't do that. We think it's important to look at how far we have to go or the gap of like, oh, shoot, my goal was this and I didn't hit it. And I got to just let me try harder next year. And then we go focus on next year, but we don't focus on like, oh my gosh, look what you've manifested this year. Look what you've created. Look at who you've become. Even if it was a tough year, like what in the world did you have to go through, right? And how have you grown because of it? What characteristics have you built up? What have you overcome? What fears did you face? And to really reflect on that and acknowledge it, it is everything. I remember one of my coaches, Bev Aaron, telling me, she said, you know what is going to be the most powerful thing you can do at the end of the year if you want an even better next year? I said, what? And she said, you got to make yourself the hero of the story of this year. You have to reflect back on this past year and make yourself the hero of that year, of that story. And when you tell it in that way, it's going to make growth so much better, so much more loving, right? Whenever we can acknowledge ourselves for how far we've come, we feel so much better. And there's actually science behind this and science behind why celebration works, why feeling pride works, why it helps us manifest. And it actually has to do with our brain. And so science has studied our reticular activating system. They call it RAS, RAS, right? Google it, look it up, do a little research on it if you like science. But what this system in our brain is our filtration system, right? Because think of how many things are going into the computer that is our brain on any given day. We get so much information. It's like information, sensory overload consistently every day, just so much coming in. And what the reticular activating system or RAS does is it filters out what's important and what's not important, right? What do I need to pay attention to? What can I kind of not pay attention to? And that is why when we say what we focus on grows, it's because of that reticular activating system in our brain. So when we're focused on how far we've come, what do? We start acknowledging and seeing the growth. We start seeing what's working. We start experiencing more of that. And I always say in terms of law of attraction, right? If you want more to celebrate, what you have to do is celebrate more because celebration attracts more celebration. In terms of the reticular activating system, think of it like this. I remember last year, I was wanting an Apple Watch. I was thinking about getting one. I was like, oh, it'd be cool to count my steps and count my sleep. And I like all the health stuff that goes along with it. And I was kind of like, I don't know. Maybe I want one. Maybe I don't. And I realized that every time I went out into the world, I felt like everyone on the planet suddenly had an Apple Watch because I thought about getting one. And I started looking at their Apple Watches and looking at the bands that they had and started thinking about colors. Before that, y'all, I had never paid attention to anyone wearing an Apple Watch. Like, I didn't even think about it, right? Like, I didn't pay attention. And that's because I wasn't focused on it. To my brain, it was like, that's not important. RAS was like, the reticular activating system was like, no, there's more important things to focus on. So you just kind of dismiss things that aren't in your consciousness, right? Same thing happens when we're focused on problems, right? That filtration, that RAS in our brain says, okay, well, if we're focusing on what we didn't reach, how, the problems that we faced this year, how it was a challenging year, guess what? We're going to feel bad. And we're also only going to see evidence of more of that. So this is why, from a scientific standpoint, it actually matters, right? Because once you start seeing things that are going well and start really reflecting and looking at how far did I come this year? What am I most proud of myself for? What was my biggest growth this year? Like, how did I grow the most? When we start asking ourselves questions like that, my gosh, we see how amazing we are and how far we come. And then we actually experience the joy that is our lives. And here's the thing, when we don't do this work, we will never have that experience. So a lot of us think, well, once I hit this goal, then I'm going to feel proud of myself. Then I'm going to feel successful. Then I'm going to celebrate. But guess what? If you don't teach yourself the habit of celebrating now, you will not know how to celebrate there. I guarantee it. And I've seen it way too many times with way too many of my clients, and including myself, right? It's like, hit a goal. Oh, what's next? Right? We don't even acknowledge the fact, holy cow, I did that thing, right? Think of yourself 5 years ago, and the you 5 years ago. If you were to look at your life now and see how far you've come, what would you think? I bet that version of you would be pretty darn proud of yourself. You'd be probably pretty blown away at how far you've come. But how often in the present do you experience that pride? How often in the present do you actually celebrate yourself for what you've overcome and the challenges that you have overcome and all that you've gone through and all the courage that you moved through? Do you celebrate that? If not, that is your opportunity. And I love this time of year because I think it's just the perfect time to reflect and celebrate. And I think the more that you do that this year, then when you go into the new year to set new intentions, if that's a practice that you have, it's going to come from such a different energy, right? It's going to come from a really solid, grounded place that's going to be a beautiful launch pad for the new year, right? And another thing that I want to talk about is goals, right? And I want to talk to those of you who maybe didn't reach your goal this year. And I want to say, so freaking what? All right. Some of us make way too big a deal of not reaching a goal. We create a story around it. We make it mean all kinds of things about us, that we're not someone who can achieve goals, and why even set them if I can't achieve them. And I just want you to completely let go of all of that. Let go of all the stories that are limiting you and making you feel bad about yourself that you're telling yourself about a goal, right? Because number one, goals are human made. It's something you made up, right? You totally made it up. And then what we tend to do sometimes is we're like, okay, I made this thing up that I want to go for. And if I don't reach it, that means all these things about me. It means I'm not successful. I can't do it. I'm not good enough, blah, 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 right? It's just a way that we beat ourselves up. And that is not helpful at all. And it's not even true, right? It's like, what's the point of a goal? The way that I think about goals, I love this quote, which is shoot for the stars. And even if you miss, you'll at least land on the moon. right? And that's how I think about goals. It's like if you hadn't set that goal and had a vision for where you wanted to go, where do you think you'd be? You probably would not be as far along as you are now. Like, think of what you have overcome, how far you've come because you decided to shoot for the stars. You went for it, and you probably landed somewhere really amazing that you wouldn't have landed had you not set that at the beginning of the year. That's what we want to be celebrating. And that's really the reason for a goal, right? Goals, again, they're human made. We made it up. Number two, time is relative. So even if you set it in a certain time frame, right? Who cares? If you just keep going, you will reach that star. You will reach that goal, right? So that's why I'm a big fan of not attaching to timelines because they don't matter. Time is relative, right? And so if you just keep going, you're going to reach it. And so that I think is the opportunity more than anything is not to beat yourself up about not reaching a goal, not to make it mean anything about you, but just to decide I'm going to keep going. I made this timeline up. Time is relative. Who cares? No matter what, if I go for it, I'm going to reach it. And that is always my mindset because believe it or not, I do not reach most of my goals in the timeline that I set. I really don't. I can think of one of because I set big, audacious goals. I love to manifest big things. I go for a big life, right? And so, of course, like it's going to take the time that it takes for me to evolve into that, for me to become an energetic match to that. And it's a journey and it's fun. And the truth is, we're always going to be growing and evolving, and that's never going to change. So, who cares which goal we happen to be going for at any given time? Right. So, my mindset is always just keep going. And I will tell you what, I have reached every impossible goal that I have set out to reach. But that doesn't mean that I did it in the exact timeline that I wanted. There was one of them that happened way faster than I thought, but the many, 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 many others just took a bit longer. Some just a bit longer, some way longer, some years longer. But who cares? Because here's how I think about it. If I didn't have the courage to set those big, audacious, impossible goals, and I didn't have the patience to stay with them and keep going past the timeline that I kind of intended for it, guess what? I wouldn't have this big, epic life that I have now. I wouldn't have this business. I wouldn't have my condo in Hawaii. I wouldn't have my home in LA. I wouldn't have, oh my gosh, pretty much everything in my life. I wouldn't have my dog. She manifested way longer than what, I had intended. But I manifested her eventually, and she's my baby, and I wouldn't have it any other way. She wasn't alive yet. So of course I couldn't manifest, her beforehand. It took me a couple years to finally be an energetic match to having my little Millie. So I think it's just really important that we redefine goals a little bit and not attach so much to them, not attach our worth and all of this meaning to it because it does not freaking matter. You will get whatever you set out to, and you will manifest whatever your heart desires if you just keep going. That's what it's about. All right. That is how you manifest the life of your dreams. So if you're beating yourself up about this year or saying, I didn't do this and I wanted to do that, I'm going to sit here and say, so what? Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Right? Let it go. It's not going to help you to beat yourself up about it. Instead, what I recommend doing is focus on how far you've come. Look at what you've achieved because you decided to set out and go for that thing. Start focusing on your growth instead of that gap of where you didn't, reach, whatever. It doesn't matter. That is not going to be helpful. It's actually going to slow it down. So that's what I've got for you. And I just recommend, spending the last bit of this year truly acknowledging yourself and reflecting back on how far you've come, on celebrating yourself, And when you start developing that habit, even if it feels uncomfortable, I guarantee it's going to be so much easier and so much more fun to manifest from that place, right? Because you're actually in the energy of what it is you want when you let yourself celebrate. And that is called becoming an energetic match, right? Why do we want anything in life? Why do we want to manifest anything? Because of how we think it'll make us feel. And those feelings are available to us now. So when we can learn to access those feelings like pride, celebration, success, joy, all of those feelings, guess what? We place less importance on achieving that thing. We let go of the attachment. And guess what happens? We move towards it even faster. It's a wild thing. Just play with it and see how that happens. So, my friend, it's time to celebrate the heck out of yourself. Cheers to you. I'm thinking of you. I'm celebrating you. I thank you for being here and listening to this podcast. That's one of the things that I'm definitely celebrating this year is me getting this out into the world. This was a long time manifestation and I absolutely love it. I'm so grateful and I am going to celebrate the heck out of myself for making it happen. All right. Cheers to you and cheers to an amazing new year. If you're listening to this later on, well, guess what? It is always a good time to celebrate. So this isn't just an end of year ritual. This is a life ritual. In fact, in my programs, this is something that we do weekly. I remind them every single Friday, celebrate yourself. How far did you come? What did you overcome? What did you fail at, right? Let's celebrate the failures because what we fail at, we learn from. It's huge. And if we're failing, it means we're in the arena. So you know what? We're going to celebrate it all. All right. I love you all. I'll see you in the new year. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope this episode is something that you'll be able to add to your manifestation toolbox to come back to when you need a little extra motivation. If you like what you've heard today and want to take it deeper, you've got to come check out my signature coaching program, the Money Manifestation Movement. It's the place where you'll not only learn manifestation, but you'll begin to live it alongside me and an amazing community of like-minded entrepreneurs doing this work together. Head on over to jamieberman.com to learn more.